My name is Zoe Christensen. I'm a junior on the women's track and field team and also the president of Bemidji State University's Black Student Union. For Black History Month, BSU Athletics is conducting interviews with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and professors, trying to get different perspectives on what Black History Month means to each of these individuals. So with me today is Coach Bisch from the men's football team. Coach Bisch, thank you for meeting with me today.
Welcome. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
What does Black History Month mean to you as a football coach here at BSU?
Well, I think number one, to me, Black History Month means education. It means knowledge. I think there's a lot of things in history, not just American history, but world history, that are not always told or taught. And I firmly believe that truth, no matter what it is, can be very enlightening, very freeing, and obviously that leads to wisdom for people. And some parts of history are not always told or taught correctly, for that matter. And a good place to start with Black history, you can go back to ancient times. You could even look to places like the Bible, the Old Testament, things like that, and find a lot of artifacts for Black history, in my opinion. And it's not always a popular thing to say, but there's many facts, timelines, and artifacts that support that in ancient Hebrew times and things like that. So to me, that's very interesting. And I firmly believe that knowledge leads to awareness, which leads to wisdom. And I think both wisdom and awareness can, lead to resolution, and especially in our current times right now.
Awesome. That was a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
In what ways have you celebrated Black History Month, or in what ways do you plan to celebrate Black History Month?
Yeah. Number one for me is just kind of paying tribute to people that have kind of trailblazed and come before us, especially in America, because that's where a lot of, the more modern history is at and things like that. But, paying tribute to the trailblazers who've come before us, I think is really important. And, since I've been a professional, if you will, a coach, ever since my student days have been done, I've really enjoyed taking in events that students have put on the campuses I've been on. Last year I remember BSU did a number of things in the month of February. The Black Student Union did. There was a get to know you deal where each student kind of basically role played a different character in history. I remember one of our football players, Jalen Fry, he was Hank Aaron, and he got to tell all about Hank Aaron, the stuff that you didn't know about Hank Aaron. And there was different, athletes and people from campus that kind of role played. And those are things I really like to, do during Black History Month. And, back in the day when I was in college and back then, there was always a soul food dinner or things like that they would do. There was a lot of fun, and it would get a lot of students involved that maybe didn't have any idea what that meant. Students would come check that out, and it was a really good deal.
Awesome. Thank you. I do remember seeing you at a lot of our Black Student Union events, so thank you for attending those.
You bet.
Is there an influential leader in Black history or currently whom you admire and why?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of people that I admire, and some people I admire because I'm similar to them in the way we do things, or there's a lot of people I admire because of their courage and things like that. And I look back, modern history, if you will. There's people that I look at, from civil rights era, people like Medgar Evers, Roy Wilkins, who was actually a Minnesota guy, who was NAACP executive secretary. A lot of people don't know that he was a Minnesotan, which is really cool. Kind of grew up in the Rondo neighborhood in St. Paul. More currently, I really like Melvin Carter, or I admire Melvin Carter, who's a mayor of St. Paul. I think he's got a really good way that he leads his city, especially with everything that happened this summer. I really like how he went about and how he led his city. Tony Evans is a pastor that I admire. A guy named Brian Sharp is a guy that I look up to in terms of how he goes about cryptocurrency and just kind of cutting edge things in the world. Obviously, as a football coach, coaches have been really influential for me. And I look at Eddie Robinson. I've had a chance to read his book, and I've had a chance to be on their campus at Grambling. Obviously, he's passed. Dennis Green, Herman Edwards. I worked for Herman Edwards for a couple years as an intern. I had to learn from him. Tony Dungy is an incredible one that I admire big time, along with Mike Tomlin. And then some guys that aren't even football coaches. John Chaney at Temple was always a guy when I was younger that I always watched and kept a close eye on. Dusty Baker in baseball, was a longtime manager. And then you look at, athletes that kind of paved the way. Obviously you hear a lot about Jackie Robinson, and he's one to admire, but one I probably admire even more, I'm not comparing, but one that I think is just equally as important, is Willie O'Reilly. Willie O'Reilly was the first black player in the NHL. He's a Canadian guy. He was the first black player in the NHL, for the Boston Bruins. And he's still alive today. He's 85. And I think that, there's not as much that gets, that's a majority non-black sport, and so that guy paved the way for a lot of the current players now. When I look at the music world or the entrepreneurial world, guys like Charlie Pride to me are guys I admire. Old school country guy. And you look at country music and you don't see a lot of faces that look like his, and it's really kind of cool to me that he paved the way there. And Percy Miller, most people know him as Master P. I think he's incredibly smart as far as a businessman goes. I'm not saying music-wise, whether you like it or not, it's up to an individual. But business-wise, Percy Miller, unbelievable entrepreneur, and Jermaine Cole, really like him. And personally, I think some of my biggest role models and people I admire, Richard Johnson's a big one for me, just a personal person in my life. And then Brian Bell. Brian Bell is a coach that I came up under. Brian Bell, I worked with him for a few years. He's actually a Bemidji State alumni. That was a great connection when I got, involved in this job. He's someone that I absolutely admire, and he's like an older brother to me, and I look up to him big time. He's always had great leadership skills and taught me a ton. So that was a long answer, but I don't think there was just one that could fit the answer.
That's okay. No, it's good. It's good to have multiple role models and people that you can look up to and learn from. South African cleric and human rights activist Desmond Tutu once said, "My humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together." What does this quote mean to you, and how can it relate to BSU athletics?
Yeah, so I kind of got a three-part answer there. When I hear that quote from Desmond Tutu, obviously he's a bishop. To me it is, when you look along those lines of religion and spirituality, I look at, John, the book of John, chapter 15, verses 12 through 14. Love each other. And Jesus said, love each other in the same way I have loved you. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. And that's really what I think Desmond Tutu is saying there. It's kind of like the golden rule: treat others as you want to be treated, essentially. And as it relates to BSU athletics, I think that it takes all of us to achieve our goals. Everybody in our BSU athletics community, the Bemidji community, the Bemidji State community, and the world. We're trying to make it a better place for everyone, not just certain people. And when I hear that quote from him, that's what it is. And kind of along those same lines, there's that old saying of, it takes a village to raise a child. I think it kind of applies here, because it takes a whole village for our students to have an incredible college experience, gain the knowledge they need, and move on to the next phase of their life accordingly, whether they're natives of Bemidji or people from out of state, or people that, maybe took a chance on coming to Bemidji. I think it's extremely important and that's really what I think that quote, in a three-part answer means. So.
Awesome. That's a good answer. Yeah, I agree completely. Okay, well, those are the only questions I have. So thank you for speaking with me today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you for having me, and anything you guys need, let me know. Thank you.